With the last CSGO major merely days away in Paris, it's time for the pick'ems. A tradition on the channel. I've done this going back years and years and years. You guys seem to enjoy it, so of course I'm going to be doing them all again this time. We're going to go through the Challenger stage today, then obviously the Legend stage, and finally the Champion stage, where we will crown a victor, the very last CSGO major winner. And we're going to go through all of this as per usual. So I'm going to explain a couple of things first before we do get underway for newer viewers, because every year that goes by we get a new sort of school of viewers and fans, a new generation coming up. So if this is your first pick'ems and you've just stumbled across my video, then I typically recommend that you pick a team as your 3-0 pick that's more of a gamble rather than a guaranteed. Because if you go for a guaranteed team like a G2 or something and they drop a map, you will not get credited with them going through, even if they make it through 3-1. So I always put as my 3-0 pick a gamble that could go out. They could bomb out of the groups and be horrible. Ideally, if they don't go 3-0, I'd rather they did bomb out the groups, because it makes it more likely that my teams that I've got to advance will. And then on the other side of the coin, putting those teams I think are guaranteed to make it through in these spots down here. I only aim for diamond coins. I don't aim to go flawless. I don't aim to go perfect. I want the diamond coin, and that's what I'm looking to do. So I'm playing more of the odds in that regard. It is, however, a major where anything happens. I'm sure we're going to have a lot of surprises, a lot of upsets, teams and players not quite performing as we expect. But let's also go through the opening matches, because this does have a bearing on some of my decision making. So our games are Monty vs FaZe, Pain against Fluxo, G2 versus the Mongols, Game of Legion face Complexity, Fours versus Greyhound, Apex take on Liquid, Nip versus Mouse, and finally OG versus Ents. So there are some very interesting first round matchups there, which is going to skew some of my decision making. Now, my 0-3 pick was between three teams primarily. I was thinking of the Mongols, I was thinking of Fluxo, and I was also thinking of Greyhound. I'm going to go with Fluxo though. Now, the reason for that is when I look at their recent results, they have been pretty rough. Honestly, they've been losing to a lot of sort of tier 2 or tier 1 teams. They haven't really been posting up that much. They're padding out a lot of stats and a lot of wins against like tier 2, tier 3 teams from South America and North America. But the second they play against like a Pain, or they play against a Furia or a team like that, they get completely capitulated. And I don't feel like they're going to have many maps, if any, in them in this. Now, I will put in the caveat that Pain across in the Brazy party that I did have the fortune of casting myself and seeing them firsthand multiple times, they were very scrappy and up and down. Like, they were tumultuous. But I think Pain in their first matchup against Fluxo should get the upper hand. It's not a guarantee. I would say it's like a 65-35 in Pain's favor off the top of my head. But I think they will get the job done, and if they can get a win and a solid win, I think it will build their confidence. Fluxo, I don't see them beating Mongols or Greyhound in a best of 3, to be honest. Mongols, obviously, just coming off the back a few weeks ago of being IEM Rio, where they played against some of the best teams on the planet and held their own in a lot of cases. Like, obviously, they didn't win or anything like that, but they're at least showing themselves as a very capable force. They have a jam-packed roster full of skill and talent, and I think they certainly have a map in them. And then you have Greyhound. I think they have a map in them as well. They've been in this position many a time, you know. I remember in the last major, you know, fuck your pick'ems and all this kind of stuff. So they've been around the block many a time. They've got the experience. Coming here again, I think they have a map in them. I really do. And I feel like Fluxo are probably the weakest team in this Challenger stage. So I'm going to go 0-3 for Fluxo. I don't know why I've got the spinning wheel. There we go, it's disappeared. Obviously, it's not happy with my pick. In the 3-0 pick, this is a gamble. And it's a gamble for multiple reasons. I'm going for Team Liquid. Now, it's very possible that Liquid gets smashed out and go through like 3-2, really scrappy, or get knocked out 2-3. But I could also see them just getting blitzed out of this one real quick. That being said, though, their first game is against Apex, which I believe they will win. They have way too much talent on this roster. Like, I don't believe in Liquid to make it through. Honestly, this is a pure gamble. But they have, when you look at their team and their roster, like Yakindar obviously in there, you got some of the classic players like Elige. OC as an AWP is still a bit inconsistent, but I think they can get the job done here. If they get off to a good start against Apex, I fancy that they have a chance to go 3-0. But they absolutely could get knocked out of the groups as well. I have no idea what to expect with Liquid. So that's why I'm going for Liquid, ultimately. I'm playing the percentages, and I'm allowing myself to go through with some of these more likely teams. Now, the likely teams kind of pick themselves. G2, FaZe, those two, I think, are going to be going through almost ironclad. FaZe have certainly looked a little bit more shaky as of late, though. They haven't quite recaptured that form that saw them win the major back in Antwerp nearly a year ago. They have been very inconsistent, to say the least. They got some great players on the roster, the likes of Twists. Obviously, Rain is a phenomenal prospect. He always is. G2, I don't think I have to explain too much about them. I think they're going to go a very, very long way in this major and may even win the major itself. It would be a great story, if nothing else, for Nico to get his hands on the very last CSGO major. I feel pretty confident about both of those teams going through, especially considering that they're playing against Monty and the Mongols, respectively. I feel like they're both going to 1-0 to start off with. After that, it does get a little bit harder. I feel like G2 and FaZe are on a different plane. They're on like a different level. And then you have a bit of a drop-off. As my third team, though, I am going to go with ENCE. Now, I also thought about picking ENCE as my 3-0 pick, to be honest with you. But I think they have a better chance of scraping and just bullying their way through if things go bad than Liquid do. If Liquid have a bad start, like they somehow go 0-2 or they're 1-2, I can see them just kind of crumbling. I think ENCE are a team that's always going to be there or thereabouts. They're always going to fight. They have tons and tons of great players. Snappy, I'm a big fan of his IGLing. He's posted up some big numbers in the past. At majors. I still remember, I think it was Antwerp, where he played Nuke and he dropped like a 30 bomb and he was absolutely insane. They're just a really solid team. Sun, Pius, still yet to be seen. Nertz, when he blows hot, he's incredibly hot. When he's cold, he's almost absent. D has always Mr. Consistent, though I think he's a really, really solid player. So overall, I feel like ENCE should make it through here, and I feel fairly confident. Also, I should mention, as per usual with these pick'ems, I go from left to right, the most to least likely team to progress through. So I feel like G2 FaZe, and they're on like a different level, cut-off point than it's ENCE. Next, I'm going to go with who ENCE is playing in their very first game. I'm going to go with OG. Now, I typically don't like picking two teams that play against each other in the first team, because obviously it gives one of them a massive disadvantage going forwards. But I feel like OG are just too good to get knocked out here in the challenges. I feel like they're going to be more than powerful enough. And if they go down to that 0-1 bracket, I fancy them to beat pretty much anybody that they'll be going up against. When you consider that the choices are going to have some pretty weaker teams down there, obviously barring a huge upset elsewhere in the tournament, which is possible. One of the things that does put me off a little bit, though, is this is another team that I casted at the Brazy party. There was a match in particular where NeoFrag had some personal issues and Rugger had to step in, and I don't know what the personal issues were. I'm not sure if they will bleed over into the major or not. This is just pure speculation on my part. But they're also very up and down with their performances. Like, Dexter was quite quiet by his own high standards, and that's a concern if you're OG. You know, you need him to be one of those heavy hitter kind of power fraggers that's going to get you across the line in those very scrappy games, and he wasn't quite that at Brazy Party. However, I can't take too much from that one performance that I saw from them. And I still think they're more than good enough to justify a spot in the Legends stage. Okay, after OG, we are looking at Mouse. I feel like Mouse is always going to be in contention for the challenges. I think that they are a lot of people often overlook them. I think they're an underdogs kind of team. They grind, they graft. Recent performances have been up and down. But I just feel like this is a roster that is too good not to make it through the challenger stage. The downside for them is they are playing against NIP in their first match, which could put them into a 0-1. I think it's a bit of a 50-50 matchup, to be honest. But I still feel like Mouse are going to grind this one out and really take it to the teams they fight off against, and I think they'll manage to just about make it. Now, my concern for these last two positions is it was really, really hard to pick these. There was, to be honest, like 5 teams that I was looking at. I was looking at Force, Pain, Gamer Legion, Apex, and additionally NiP. I was looking at all 5 of these teams for their last 2 spots, and I kept going back and forth on them, and I've decided that I'm going to not pick Force. They're not going to get picked. Now, the reason why is when I was looking through some of their recent performances, and I actually went to a deeper dive or watched some of the demos of Force because I was curious how it happened. They lost to Looking for Org, which is Lucky and Macca's team, so they're literally not in an org right now. And they also lost to Monty, and this was in the last few weeks. Even some of the wins they've been getting have been incredibly scrappy and incredibly close. And although it is a solid roster that could make it through, these last 2 picks are question marks for a reason. They are definitely nervy, cautious picks. Even though they've been scrappy and they could make it through, I didn't feel confident enough to pick 4s because of recent performances, and often that's all you can really go off. So instead, I'm going to go for Nip. Yes, they've also not exactly been firing on all cylinders, but when you look at their team, you got Config, you got Alexi B, you got Brolan, etc. Like, I have to believe that they're going to be able to grind their way out of the challenger stage here. And finally, this is a gamble pick. I could have gone for Gamer Legion. I could have gone for Apex. Apex in particular looked very good lately. I'm going to go with Pain Gaming. The reason that I'm a bit concerned about this pick is for the same reason I was a little bit tentative with picking Fluxo as my 0-3. They were a team I got to cast a lot at Brazy Party, and they were a team that was the most inconsistent, the most disappointing in some of their performances. Nekis had a lot of bad performances, to be honest. Zevi, though, consistently is always a threat. And I just feel like the Brazilians are going to show up when it counts. That's what I'm going in for here. I could completely understand if people don't believe in Pain, if they feel like Pain aren't going to make it through, especially off recent performances. But I think all of that was a build-up to this moment. They've got the jitters out their system. They've got the nerves out their system. They come in against basically a Brazilian derby. They know a lot of these players, have played against them a lot, so it's a bit more of a comfort pick, I would think. They know a lot about these guys. And I feel like that's going to give them an advantage. And I think they are going to squeak their way through. So, those are my pick'ems. I'm going to go with Liquid 3-0, Fluxo 0-3, G2, FaZe, ENCE, OG, Mouse, Nip, and Pain to make it through to the Legends stage. As ever, do you agree or do you disagree? Who are your picks? Who do you think I've got wrong? Comment below and let me know. I'm updating those, and I'll see you guys in the next video. Additionally, just to mention again, I have a Fantasy League. I'll pop that in the description box below. And for those of you that enjoyed the consistent content, everyday content that I did last major with Dualism, they're coming back, but we're also adding Frog, who is the coach of Bravado. So it should be even more packed with analytical goodness. So I'll catch you guys for those bits of content. Thank you very much for your continued support, and I'll see you next time. Peace.